The Prime Minister has promised financial support for flood-affected communities across Victoria. Anthony Albanese made the announcement in Melbourne yesterday after visiting other storm-affected regions on the Gold Coast and far north Queensland. Joining me live is Nationals MP Sam Birrell. Good afternoon to you, Sam. Talk us through what you're seeing. You are in the electorate of Shepparton. Not at the moment though, but what are you hearing from people and what are you seeing on the ground?
Yeah, thanks, Janie. It's a pretty concerning time, particularly from Monday morning onwards with the heavy rainfall over the weekend. And that caused the swelling of the Campaspe and the Goulburn rivers. The Campaspe River rise threatened Rochester, which, as many people will know, had already been through a horrific flood event in October of 2022. And the Goulburn River, obviously, that threatened the town of Seymour. So everyone was very much on edge through Monday. It turned out that the river heights didn't get as high and as severe as expected. So there was a lot of sandbagging, a lot of preparation, and a lot of very anxious people in those two townships, particularly of Seymour and Rochester. But there was sort of breathing sigh of relief. There was still some damage, and there was some evacuations, but there were some real challenges with preparing for that event. Particularly, they'd just been through it just over a year ago. So at the moment, things look a lot better. The water's on its way to the townships of Shepparton and Mooroopna. But again, the river heights are being scaled down a bit. But I spent a lot of time earlier this week in Rochester and Seymour, and look, they were breathing a sigh of relief, but are worried for the future.
Yes, and there are still certainly a number of warnings out, and as you said, a lot of water, and certainly with the ground already saturated, hearing that the water has been rising quite quickly for many areas. Sam, Victorian residents are also being warned of rising insurances as their properties are being assessed for flood damage. I've spoken to a few people this week, and they are quite concerned because with the previous 2022 floods, they didn't receive their grants for months and months, and hearing some of the exorbitant prices of the insurance rates going up as well.
Yeah, it's a real challenge. To get through the floods is one thing. To get your insurance payout, if required, is another thing to get through. But then reinsuring is really challenging, and the cost of that as well. So really difficult times. Obviously, we're advocating a lot to the Insurance Council, but I think as government and policymakers, we need to look at what ways of mitigating against these flood events for townships, particularly like Rochester, and things that were probably previously considered you wouldn't do for a 1 in 100 year event, flooding event. Well, these things are happening more often now. So we've really got to have a bit more broad thinking about what we could do in terms of policy or engineering to mitigate against these flood events.